The Russian President Vladimir Putin speaking out just ahead of next week's summit with President Biden. Let's go back to our chief White House correspondent, Caitlin Collins. Caitlin, so what is Putin saying tonight?
Well, he's commenting pretty extensively on relations with Biden, comparing him to his predecessor. And Wolf, this is a 90-minute interview, according to NBC, that President Putin did with Keir Simmons. This is just a small excerpt of that interview, but of course it is vitally important and could foreshadow what we should expect to happen in Geneva next week when Biden does come face to face with him for the first time since he has become president. And this is what Putin had to say about Biden, comparing him to Trump.
We have a bilateral relationship that has deteriorated to its lowest point in recent years.
You once described President Trump as a bright person, talented. How would you describe President Biden?
Well, even now, I believe that former U.S. President, Mr. Trump, is an extraordinary individual, talented individual. Otherwise, he would not have become U.S. President. He's a colorful individual. You may like him or not. But he didn't come from the U.S. establishment. He had not been part of big-time politics before. And some like it, some don't like it. But that is a fact. President Biden, of course, is radically different from Trump because President Biden is a career man. He has spent virtually his entire adulthood in politics. Just think of the number of years he spent in the Senate. A different kind of person. And it is my great hope that, yes, there are some advantages, some disadvantages, but there will not be any impulse-based movements.
And Wolf, that was a fascinating answer for several reasons, but he was asked, what do you think about Biden? And he spent the first half of that answer, or more than that, describing President Trump and talking about him and describing his career before he became president. And it's notable, I think, saying how many years President Biden has been in public life and been in politics, of course, as a senator for several decades and then as vice president, now as president, because Putin is someone himself who has been in public life for some time. Of course, he was in the KGB. He has been someone who has been president for several years. He has really been a figure in Russia. He's not someone who came out of nowhere with no political background in the way that former President Trump did. But I think what the White House is going to be doing is watching this closely, watching what he says on Monday, going into that meeting, because they say they want to get face to face with Putin to hear him talk in the way similar to what he's saying there about what he envisions for the U.S.-Russia relationship. And he is saying there something that we've heard from the White House, which is they think that relationship is at the lowest point it has been in decades. And I do think it was notable, Keir Simmons did in that excerpt push Putin several times on whether or not he is a killer. That is something that several U.S. figures have referred to Putin as, including most recently President Biden, when he was asked in an ABC interview, do you think Putin is a killer? And he said very quickly, without really skipping a beat, that yes, he did. So, of course, that is really just part of this tense stage setting that we are seeing going into this face-to-face meeting. And so what that actually looks like, how long that meeting goes on, we're still waiting to see, Wolf, and it should be fascinating.
We will watch it very, very closely. The stakes clearly are enormous. Putin, he's been the leader of Russia for some 20 years, and he's complaining. Maybe he's not complaining, but he seems to be complaining that Biden has been in public office for so long, 36 years in the Senate, 8 years as vice president, and now as president. But clearly, Caitlin, Putin really likes Trump a lot. That's obvious.
Of course he does, because Trump was someone who embraced him over his own intelligence agencies in front of the entire world, on camera, in front of the press corps in Helsinki. And so Trump was really kind of his dream president, because he was someone who, despite what Trump has said, did not go to the lengths to hold him accountable for actions like when it came to political prisoners, when it came to election interference. And so now he is dealing with a very different president. The White House says they don't want to just push Russia and push Russia. They want to have a working relationship with Russia, because they do think it's important. But he is dealing with someone who is very different than the president that he has been interacting with for the last 4 years.